recording. Now it's live.
Oh, I didn't see the other. Oh, I see what you said. Okay. Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for January 26, 2021. 10 a.m. session. No public testimony during this review session. The first item up is Appeals Calendar, new case, item number 20-2020-24A, 3935 27th Street, Queens.
Okay. We have proof of service of initial application to officials. I think I just wanted to point out that the instruction to the applicant, I think, was incorrect in terms of our notice to the applicant. I don't think there was any further
Notification requirements.
Right. We don't have a community board, but we don't really need to have it.
We don't need one.
And I think part of the confusion for that instruction to the applicant is that the project description on our calendar is inaccurate. This is not an initial application for a common law vested rights case, but an extension of time to complete a building that this board granted common law vested rights to in 2010 and extended in 2016. So that's, I think, why the wrong notice of hearing went out to the applicant. So I please beg the project managers to always check the project description and make sure it's correct, because that's what Muriel relies on when she sends out the notice to the applicant. For board members present in 2016, this was a very difficult renewal application because the site had been dramatically mismanaged, causing damage and collapses of neighboring properties. It took us 13 hearings to involve qualified site safety managers and to coordinate the work with DOB's Best Squad. Proof that the poor management continued subsequent to our 2016 extension is the stop work order that apparently took 3 years to address before it was lifted. There's an unclear statement in the statement of facts about the developer wanting the board's condition requiring site safety management to be eliminated. I didn't really understand the sentence even. That seemed to be the implication. That actually was not a condition of grant. That was something that we sort of developed and involved over the course of the hearings. We involved DOB's Best Squad because there was no other way to ensure site safety and legal construction methods, given what we observed was going on at the site. But it's really for DOB to tell us that the site is being properly managed and the quality of work meets code, and whether or not their Best Squad continues to focus on the site. There's a statement in the statement of facts, which is also not clear, that says the new general contractor has, quote, better construction methods. I don't understand what that is. However, the two neighbors who testified at more or less all of our hearings did submit really great sort of glowing letters in support of this new owner and construction contractor. And those two neighbors had been really tortured over 11 years by the behavior of the prior owner and various contractors. So it sounds like, based on what the neighbors are saying, this is a much better team working on this. I'd like to know, though, what the current status of the project is, since the statement that we were given by the contractor is very old, and they should provide updated photos as well, though we were provided with a photo by one of the neighbors. The record should have updated photos to show that the project is apparently 90% complete now, but we don't have photos to support that. There were bubbled plans submitted because there were some changes made. But the bubble plans are useless because it's, again, a bubble of the entire drawing, and we can't do anything with that. So we do need a set that shows only the specific changes bubbled, which I understand is the layout of 2 of the units on the interior and balconies being removed, but none of them seem to go to anything related to the vesting. And also, there should have been the proper bubbling and a list of the changes reflected with keys on the drawings, as is required by our administrative notice. We did receive at the project manager's request a Putnam analysis test, though, and in terms of the Putnam test with respect to abandonment, the site was dramatically mismanaged, but construction was sort of going on in dribs and drabs and in some form or other throughout. So we can't say it was abandoned. It was just neglectfully handled. There are no open violations. So really, other than a better submission of the bubble drawings with a list, I didn't have any submission requirements that I thought should be. Vice Chair Shanda?
Yes, I also don't have anything additional to ask other than a little bit of an update on the status. I was satisfied to see the letters from the neighbors who seem to be very satisfied with the work that is going on and the improvements made, and that speaks volume. So I'm satisfied.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Riley Brown?
While I do understand that they originally made the findings, their statement of facts is more a narrative of the background of what's been going on, and they still have to make the findings, even though they made it once before. And there's like no real detail about what the 95% complete constitutes, no detail about any expenditures to date, and there's no updating on the serious loss. So I had to go back to the first resolution to get all of the information from the first resolution because it's never picked up again, and they still have to make the findings. So they should spend their statement talking about the findings. There's like absolutely no information now about serious loss. And it's not hard to make. This is just more a question of just revising your statement. It's pretty simple.
It's funny that you say that because, you know, I didn't even realize it because I was reading along with a prior resolution and I sort of filled in the blanks myself, but that's good.
Right, and that's what I did. I went back to the first resolution and I filled in the blanks, but a statement of facts and findings is exactly that. And you need to tie all your information in. And I say this particularly for this applicant because I don't want this to be a precedent for other cases, especially common law vested rights that are in their first iteration.
Mm-hmm.
If you want it to go smoothly, give us all of the information, make all of the findings.
Okay, thank you. I think I was wondering, maybe I'm recollecting because I was reading the old and then reading the new together, that there was something that talked about what additional work was done. No?
They have one sentence that says the project is now 95% complete. Then you go to a chart to find out how much money was spent, which is 7.49 million out of 8.323 million. And then there's nothing about serious loss at all. And the substantial money is not even listed in the statement as a finding. It's just literally a statement of facts. Like, oh, you remember this site. It was a site that had all these issues. Now the issues are straightened out. Our neighbors love us. Extend the time, but that's not findings.
Right.
Can I just say something? We had a conversation, and Kirk, could you join this conversation? Because what happened was the applicant said, well, I've vested and I've made the findings. And so we had a conversation, Council and I, it's what's done since the board's grant.
Right.
So the applicant's argument to me was that we don't have to make the findings again because the board is already vested. So is that something different from what you're discussing, Madam?
No, it's not. And I'll defer to the lawyers on this if they no longer need to prove findings once they've initially made it. I just know that
unless I don't want to misrepresent what Kurt said.
Yeah.
14 years. They've always had to recite the findings as well as give us the additional update on the work done, because that also proves that they haven't abandoned the site.
Right.
So
that was Tony, to clarify, that was the conversation that well, we didn't speak by phone, but my
With email.
understanding is that they needed to provide updated documentation with respect to all of the analysis. But in terms of the original vesting, obviously the board isn't going to unpack what it had already done at that point, but they do need to provide additional information in terms of what has gone on with respect to, as Commissioner Otley Brown was saying, the findings. And so the analysis doesn't need to start from scratch, but it certainly needs to be up to date.
Okay, I just want that to be clear because the applicant raised it in another case, that's another vesting case of Vinroy's, and we sort of, that's what we were kind of, going to.
No, but if we just think about some of the other ones we've had recently, where they're a renewal essentially of a vesting, they reiterate what they learned, what was concluded the last time. The last time we had 7 million in place, we had completed foundations up until this point by the vesting date. We're not counting any of the work done subsequent to that, et cetera, right? And then the next time they come for a renewal, they remind, up until the vesting date, we had 7 million in place. The foundations were complete. And since that time, we built 5 floors and now we're up to 21 million and so on. And so it's just a continuity. And then the serious loss discussion is, you determined we had serious loss with foundations and 7 million. Well, now the serious loss would be 21 million and 5 floors.
Right, well, we raised that in the comments. It just, that question came up and we were being too onerous and making them do the findings again. And
no, you're not being too
Onerous,
onerous.
It's not
Okay.
onerous if all they have to do is go back to the resolution, read the resolution, copy those 3 figures down and update them. That's
Okay.
not onerous.
Right.
Okay,
And I have to say that sometimes there's arguments from the applicant to not have to do the work creates more work, because now look what's happened. We were probably ready to close this, right? If we had all the findings made, and now we have to have another hearing. And so it delays for the client. And why push back on, a paragraph? Makes no sense. Like, it's reminding me of the 4-page email we once got, complaining that that the applicant shouldn't have to do a programmatic needs analysis.
oh,
We're
God.
thinking about the 4-page email and how much that costs for a lawyer to write. It probably covered the cost of the programmatic needs analysis, right? Which, by the way, the board asked for at the very first hearing. So advice to all applicants who might be listening, if your project manager tells you to do it, do it. Don't try to talk them out of it. They're telling you because the board is going to ask for it.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
A recent example of this was and it's not completely analogous because it was going from a statutory vesting to a common law vesting, but the hotel on in Midtown East that Greenberg Trark handled, and the board took sort of judicial notice of the original documentation, but they had submitted updated documentation for the common law application.
Right. So they didn't have to submit the reams and reams of prior documentation. It was the additional expenditures that were submitted. Right.
Yes.
That's good. Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Where am I up to? Okay.
Shetta. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a good thing to see a project like this that was under tremendous issues during construction under previous management, and now it's fixed to the degree that the neighbors are happy with it. That's a good thing. I want to thank them for that. The only thing I was looking for is the status of the 7th and the 8th floor superstructure. Is it completed? Because they said the superstructure is about to conclude for the 7th and the 8th floor. So if they are finished, if not, just like a very small update on that. Otherwise, nothing else.
Right. Apparently the windows are in. So that's
Yeah.
thing, right? So I'm guessing the superstructure's there. Otherwise, what holds up the windows? But the but it's because we don't have updated information. But they haven't started, it doesn't sound like, the work on the little addition, or maybe they have, and they should give us an update. The addition that's located in the M district that's not subject to the vesting. It doesn't sound like they're very far along, or they've even, I don't know, that we should know.
I believe they have started, because in their statement, they are talking about like the existing 9 stories currently receiving finishes. So I believe they are working, or the work is in progress. So just
Yeah, okay. Okay. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. My notes simply stated that they need to restate their findings, update their findings, and I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Now, the only thing is, it's not relevant to our vesting, but if the neighbors are listening, I was looking at the plans again, and I see that there are 3 levels of open terraces, fully open roof decks. This is a hotel, right? And the first level is a bar. So I would just like to point out to the developer that rooftop bars are the source of incredible aggravation to the residents, to the point where there have been many residential communities who have tried to block hotel developments because of the fear of the bars. So to please build into their design adequate acoustical separation, so that these poor neighbors who have been tortured for 11 years of construction are not tortured forevermore with incredible rock and roll and so on pouring out of the rooftops that maybe is in line of sight. I don't know about how the sound transmission would work, but rooftop bars have been an issue. So I had to say that, because as soon as I looked at the plans again, Okay.
Oh, next case. Zoning calendar, continued hearing items. Oh, well, item number 21 has been adjourned. That's 2019-30 BZ, 2705 East 28th Street. That one's being adjourned. New cases, item number 22, 2019-200 BZ, 41-19 Bell Boulevard, Queens.
Yes, this is a legalization that opened in November of 2018. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors, and a posting in the lobby as is required for legalizations. The community board recommended approval. The committee report was conditional, so I'll just read it. But it's required anyway. Condition provided that the fire exits are clear and hallway access is shared. I don't really know why that came up, other than maybe the hallways aren't clear. Maybe the applicant could comment on that. We do have DOI and fire department issued violations for failure to obtain a public assembly permit, but otherwise has no objection to the application. This is, as I say, a legalization. I do have trying to understand how the ADA access actually works. This is one of those classic things where the disabled are sent to the worst possible place in order to get into the building. It's through what they're calling a breezeway, but a breezeway, this is not a breezeway. This is otherwise known as an alley. So I'd like to understand how the access to the alley is actually managed. If you have someone who's a patron of the PCE who wants to come in, is there lighting in the alleyway? What's the security control on the door? Because actually this is fire egress from the various spaces. How does a disabled person know to go there when the front door is around the block? Is there a sign at the alleyway? There isn't, based on photographs. The satellite imagery shows cars parked in the alleyway all the way, like the full length of the alleyway, as does photo 9, shows a car parked there. So it actually looks like it's really being used as the parking area for some of the staff of those various uses. So I'm curious whether when a car is parked in the alleyway, is there room for a wheelchair to actually fit down there, and how is that area maintained? And how will, and you know, I have to say the alleyway is pretty creepy. It's not clean, it's not inviting. There's sort of, it looks like a back alley. Also, once you get inside, there's a service elevator. I'm assuming it's a service elevator. I'd like to know whether it's automatic or whether it requires an operator. And all this by way of saying, I think it's a terrible solution for ADA access, and perhaps just a stair lift going straight down would work better. So my biggest concern was about ADA. Vice Chair Shandon.
My questions are related to if music is being played in the gym and if there's a sound limiter, if that is in place.
Okay. Commissioner Brown.
I have no comments.
Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, there's number one. There is this is very minor. There is a typo in the statement of facts where it says decorative ceiling acoustical tiles are applied throughout or directly to the GEP, GYP. It should be GEM, GYM. This is just a small fix, but
What?
my real issue is
sorry, what should it be?
GEM, GYM. That what's written is GYP as in Peter.
GYP is gypsum board. What's GYM?
I thought it should be GEM directly to the GEP. Okay, so it's not a typo then. Sorry.
I don't know. I didn't look at the note, but GIP is,
Gypsum board.
say, you know, 2 layers of GIP.
I hate abbreviations.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay, but the issue is if you look at the photos, and thank you, they provided interior photos. If you look at the photos and you look at the cross section on what is that? A-201.00, it sounds like this cellar was subject to deepening, meaning that if you look at the footing in the interior photos, at the lobby, you can see the footing underneath one of the columns, and the footing is entirely above grade. It's like, I'm not sure if you can see that. If you want me to share it quickly,
Yeah.
I could do it. Yeah, 1 second.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Yeah, this one. And if you look at, let me share the cross section as well. Yeah, here we go. You see this section here? You can see that the lowest floor slab, which is the basement slab,
Yeah.
and then you can see the footings are like extruding above the slab.
Yeah.
That gives me a strong impression that this cellar was subject to deepening. So what is the issue with that? The issue is this, that could be code non-compliance here, because the New York City Building Code requires that all footings be placed at least 3.5 or 4 feet, I don't recall, I believe it's 4 feet below lowest grades. If the bottom of this footing is not 4 feet below grade, that's a problem because of the frost protection. Otherwise, they need to make sure that this basement is heated 24/7. I'm not sure if this is the case, but if it's not, and it was subject to deepening, they need to like have their structural / geotech to take a look at this. If it wasn't subject to deepening and the footing is really thick and it's more than 4 feet below the finished floor, then they don't have a problem. But because I don't know, I just wanted to highlight this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is really for the architect of the gym to reach out to the architect of the building because they don't own the building, right? So,
Understood.
right, they're a tenant. So it's more like to just check on safety, I suppose. How does deepening work? I know what deepening in a ceiling is. What's deepening in a
No, deepening, like they
Oh,
made
deepening.
it deeper.
Get out
Yes,
deeper.
they
excavate?
Yeah, like I believe what happened is these footings were under, like, below grade entirely, and the head of the basement wasn't that, like, generous. So I believe that's my thinking. Maybe what they did is they just cut the grades a foot or two to make it like taller. And if they did so, they cut from the frost to protection.
I
So if
see.
they cut the protection, they need to make sure that either it's heated 24/7, or you could put some styrofoam under. I'm not sure if they did one of these solutions. If they put styrofoam underneath the slab on grade for the basement, if they made it thicker, I don't know. But I have to highlight this because it might be. I'm not saying it is. It might be a code compliance issue.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing further from me on this.
Okay,
Okay, next item is item number 23, 2019-192 BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn.
okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials. We have, and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board recommends conditional approval with one opposed. And the stipulation is that the developer is to offer 2 units that would be affordable up to 60% AMI. That's not something in our purview. And I don't know how the developer is responding to the community board. The unique conditions study includes a 25 by 100 foot site on Grattan Street that was the subject of a 2015 variance for bulk only in an M11, which allowed a 3.19 FAR, so more than 3 times the allowable, with an 80 by 25 foot floor plate on 4 floors. I'm curious, because of the size of the site that was granted in that case, if this building were given similar bulk only waivers, including a rear yard waiver, would the building be viable? I don't know whether the absence of the rear yard, because now you're talking about building the building all the way to the rear, would be too much of an imposition on neighborhood character. But it didn't seem like it would be based on my observations, but that's a question. So the question is, if it was an acceptable variance around the corner, would it be an acceptable variance here? And why? And if not, why not? This is and I ask this in part because this is a very industrial commercial block with only the 4 adjacent 3 to 4 story properties that are residential as remnants of this 361 character. Those are remnants probably from maybe even the turn of the century of the 20th. The title search for adjacent property deeds, which was provided, is not sufficient. It has to go back to 1961, and it needs a clear chart showing ownership lineage so that we don't have to figure it out ourselves. What they did is they just sent us a stack of deeds, and that means we have to figure it out. They have to do the work, but it does have to go back to 61 to show that there was no common ownership between 1961 and the present of this lot and any adjoining lots. I'm actually confused about the proposed building layout. The cellar is shown as only being excavated to a width of 17 feet, and no excavation is shown for footings to support the building above at the lot line. units are long and overly narrow. And there were no layouts shown of kitchens and bathrooms. So I don't even know that the layouts will accommodate those things. They need to indicate the rear yard depth on the site plan. And I'm questioning, why isn't this a front to back layout instead, or full floor units? Because creating these long, narrow, they're railroad flats, but not necessarily even as wide as a typical railroad flat. And because we have new rules about the size of bathrooms and so on, and kitchens for ADA accessibility, it won't be able to meet the sort of minimum. Probably the rooms will be significantly reduced in size because of all those changes in code that of course didn't exist in the 19th century when the railroad flats were constructed. Notably, the site is not within the business,
IBC.
but site location arrows are not provided or not appearing on any of the maps that were provided. So there was a zoning map, an IBZ, and firm map, none of which actually showed the site location. The word site shows up in the margin, but then there's no arrow. So we had to find it ourselves. So resubmit those with the proper arrow. But the building is not in flood zone. On the financials, which I won't go into in detail, but I'm wondering why the 40,000 square foot lot in an M31 is being compared to the subject 2,200 square foot lot in an M12. I mean, not even remotely comparable, and how much deduction can you make for 40,000 square feet difference? Fire department submitted a letter of objection with respect to rooftop access. We get that often enough on these projects, so the building obviously has to have that. And then, let's see, the EAS comments, they will need to be addressed, and the application will need hazmat, noise, and air quality reviews due to the location in a manufacturing zone. So EAS is very far from handled, addressed. Okay, Vice Chair Shonda.
Okay. So as you mentioned, I'm just going through my notes. In the proposed plan, the applicant needs to provide details regarding the amenities, including what you mentioned, the layouts. Not clear from the statement of fact if the dwelling units are 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, because that also affects in the financial analysis. One has to go to the financial analysis to determine that. With regards to the uniqueness, I found the vacant lot map and the description helpful. However, it would have been better if it was carried over into the statement of facts, and the statement of facts carried a lot of those details in going through the uniqueness part of it. What I would like the applicant to clarify is in its vacant lot analysis, it identified site 17, which it indicated is not as encumbered as the subject site. I would like the applicant to clarify why, because site 17 is an irregular site with a depth that ranges from 57 feet to 77 feet, with a lot area just about 2,825 square feet. So though it is wide, it's wider than 25 feet. It's irregular and it has a shallow depth. So why would this site also not be encumbered? So if the applicant could clarify that. In addition to the vacant lot analysis, I think it would be helpful if an additional analysis is provided by the applicant that shows how the existing narrow lots in the area are being used. Are they being really used as manufacturing or the as of right uses that would be allowed in this area? And if not, what are they being used for compared to, again, larger lots that are being used for as of right uses that one would see in manufacturing, storage, warehouse, manufacturing, and all of that. I think that information is helpful, especially on a side-by-side, neighborhood by neighborhood, because in certain manufacturing areas, what is a lot size, in certain areas, maybe of 40,000 square foot is the only large manufacturing lots. And then what you have is a few small lots which are being used in tandem with other sites. I think it's helpful to get this analysis to help us understand in a particular neighborhood, what is the demand of the manufacturing demand on or market demand for these sites, and how are they being utilized? And therefore, based on the utilization, is there a viability of use on this site? So that's why I'm asking for that information. With regards to the finance.
Wait.
Sorry.
Go on, because I didn't quite understand what it is you want. You're talking about vacant lots or all lots?
So it is actually all lots. So it's just to understand all the lots that are there within this neighborhood, all the manufacturing lots that are in this area, based on the sizes of these lots, how are they being used, and how the big lots are being used, or are they being used, and compared to the little ones, the smaller ones, how are they being used, and why are they suffering, and are they suffering? And if they are not suffering, what makes this site therefore different from those other smaller lots? And why is it not able to utilize it to what it would be allowed to use under the current regulations?
Okay.
With regards to the financial, the development cost difference in the as of right studio to the proposed, it seems is as a result of having to provide an elevator in the as of right. It has a bigger envelope, it's a taller building with bigger floor plate in the cellar and on the first floor, and then subsequent setbacks. So my question is, why is an elevator needed in the as of right? And why is a setback needed on the second floor? Couldn't the cost have been reduced if one maintained the same floor plate depth from the first floor up onwards, or even second and third floor onwards? I agree with you with regards to the ownership information. It needs to be tabulated. Just providing those deed documents is not very helpful. That should be summarized. And that's it. Those are my comments.
So just again to clarify, the as of right is a multi-story commercial building. It has to have an elevator for ADA requirements, unless maybe there's a way not to because code says you don't need to. I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. I did not know that in a commercial building, multi-story commercial building, an elevator is required. If that is the requirement, that's what's triggering it. Then my question is not.
It does have, there is some sort of leeway when a building is smaller than something, but I don't know what that is without looking it up. And then the other question was the setback on the second floor of
the building. The building has the building sets back on the second floor, then it sets back on the third floor in the rear.
Because they run out of floor area.
I understand that. So, but what if all the floor lots were of the same size, to the extent that one doesn't have to set back? Would that reduce the cost and have a better outcome? It's just a question of, and maybe it's not possible because the floor plate becomes too small for selling purposes, but that's a more of a narrative explanation to kind of walk us through that argument.
Okay. Okay, great.
So I agree that the uniqueness study needs to have a narrative in order to tie everything together, as well as the title search, because the title search is just a whole pile of deeds and you have to literally search through each one. I think it would be helpful if they actually culled the ownership from each of those lots and made a list of the ownership with the year, so that we could just look at the chart and see that there's no overlap of any ownership. The financials are pretty bad. And so I'm going to say this, the financial, and I've written my statement out. The financial analysis is riddled with errors and inconsistencies. The job of the board is not to go through the financials, uncovering and correcting errors like a teacher with a final exam. It is the responsibility of the applicant's representative to go over the report with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that it is accurate, correct, and fairly easy to understand. It should clearly support the uniqueness claim. This report is riddled with errors, and so that the ideas that they are trying to convey cannot even be digested. And I'm going to give you a few examples of the many errors I found before I finally gave up trying to read this report. So for instance, when you're looking at the site photos, they need to remove the site photo of 142 West 27th Street in Manhattan, which is inserted for one of the site photos on page 26. When they go over their site value and they're analyzing their sites, they're putting in locational adjustments for some of the sites that appear to actually be in better situations for industrial. So my question to them is, why are they analyzing this with residential in mind when they should be analyzing the sites with industrial use in mind? Because that's the use that's as of right. So while some of those sites look superior from a locational perspective because they're on larger, wider streets and surrounded by other industrial uses, they're actually getting negative adjustments. Comp number 1, the adjustment for size at plus 5% is correct, but the reason is wrong. It says that it's adjusted upwards due to its small size relative to the subject site. However, the comp is larger than the subject site, so it should have a positive adjustment regarding its large size relative to the subject site. Comp number 3, the block and lot is actually Brooklyn block 1735 lot 16. However, it's incorrectly listed as block 1715 lot 43, and that's page 36. However, the sales price noted is correct. The construction costs, I found it very difficult to go through the paragraphs regarding the construction costs because it was hard to understand what they were trying to do. They said they've deducted the general requirements figure from the hard costs because they are including it in the soft cost calculation and don't want to double count. It took a while to actually digest that. However, the amount of soft costs attributed to the as of right is different on 2 different pages, and I don't understand why. It's not addressed. Page 98 has soft costs of $123,996 for the as of right scenario, but page 100 has soft costs of $533,997 for that same as of right scenario. So these are among the errors that I corrected, and at that point, I just said, no more. I just can't do any more. Then also, I went down to look at the overall construction cost per square foot, and I don't understand why it would be more expensive to build the artist lofts than it would to build the proposed. And so they need to actually include that in their narrative and go over the rest of the report and ensure that it's clear and resubmit it.
All right, so in other words, do over, and also not only should the consultant check their own work, but the applicant's attorney should be reviewing this for proofing, and so should the owner. Because,
Absolutely.
right? So just to submit whatever because it got into the office on time isn't helpful. Slow
I
down.
agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sheta. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't have too much to add. Regarding the maps, before I forget, I believe, Chair, you have an issue with the software that you're using to view the maps. I did look at the maps, and they appear to, all of them, they appear to have the arrows pointing to the site. I'm looking at the firm map. I can, give me 1 second. This is the firm. It has the arrow right here.
Ooh,
And same is, yes, and same has the zoning map and the tax map. So I believe it might be an issue with 1 second. This is the zoning map, and this is the zoning map as well. That arrow's right here.
the only thing I see is the site. The arrow is missing. Weird. Okay.
Probably sometimes when you open the Adobe or the Word, because these are like added items, there is something called bring to front.
Yeah.
There's something called order, and sometimes you could put them in the background so you can see them, or bring them to front so they are feasible. So I'm not sure if that was the case, but I just wanted to mention this. Yeah, regarding the cost estimate, that was like the main item I did look at. I never seen a cost estimate like this. I never seen somebody who's like estimating cost for a steel framing, like element by element, beam by beam. If you look at the PDF on page 3 of 8, you can see that for the structural steel, it's piece by piece. You have a piece that's W12 by 26. It's 7 feet long. The weight is 26 pounds per foot, and the price is 25. I'm not sure if this is $25 per pound, because if it is, that's a big deal. There is, as far as I understand, steel is not $25 per pound. Otherwise, nobody like would have built steel construction. So same thing for the concrete. Very confusing, actually, construction cost estimate. I'm not sure if they were trying to like follow the administrative notice that we issued, but I don't think this like complied with it at all. So I would like them to like rearrange things and make it, put it in a form that could be easy to understand. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. So I have similar comments with regard to the deeds. They have to prove that this was not at any point pre-1961 owned in common with a lot adjacent to it. I had some questions as to whether or not the artist loft buildings were feasible, but upon hearing Commissioner Otley-Brown's request for new financials, I'll hold on to receive those before making a comment on it. I do believe there's an A, but at this point, considering that I'm not convinced yet that the artist lofts are not feasible. I'm not sure about the B. I don't believe that I see an issue in the C finding. Waiting on the D finding with regard to the ownership, and the E finding, I think you raise a very good point. If the adjacent property they used in their uniquest comparison was a property that we granted a bulk variance to, then why wouldn't that be just enough for this as well?
Thank you. Okay. That's it.
Okay. So this concludes the public review session. We will now commence with the public hearing. We are now at the public hearing for January 26, 2021, 10 a.m. session. Should you wish to speak, 646-558-8656. Oh, this is the neighbors, sorry. Go ahead. I'm ahead of myself.
Okay, we have attendees. I don't know who's appearing. Is Marvin Mitzner appearing for this?
It would be Alexis or Marvin.
Okay,
Here we go.
okay, here's Marvin. Okay.
Marvin.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes,
you can
I
speak.
am.
Well, you don't have to be sworn in, Marvin. Mr. Mitzner, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I apologize.
that's all right. You can call me anything.
As long as I don't call you late for dinner, right?
That's an open invitation.
Okay, go ahead. Mr. Mitzner, you can proceed, unless you cannot.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we heard the comments at the exec session, and I have to, okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I listened to the comments at the exec session, and as the board mentioned, the current owner has done a magnificent job in turning this project around, and his construction team is excellent. And we're certainly pleased to see that, as the board is. The current status of the project is that it is 98% complete. Everything is, the superstructure is up, it's enclosed. It has minor things that need to be done. We've had a construction inspection and have some punch list items that need to be completed. And then the building is ready for TCO inspection. That should take place over the next few months. We're hopeful. The board asked for some updated photos, and we do have them, and we'll submit them, and to show the current status of the building. With respect to the plans, I will have the architect revise his plans to only bubble those items that are different from what was previously submitted, particularly in terms of those two units that were combined. And we'll have that for you fairly quickly. I do want to thank Commissioner Otley Brown for clarifying the submission on the vested rights issue. My discussion with staff was really the need to represent or reprove the vested rights, which I don't think is necessary, but certainly updating where we are now in terms of expenditures and substantial loss and those findings for vested rights, something we can easily do, and we'll update the statement of facts accordingly.
Okay, I just want to clarify two things. The first is with the bubbling, it has to go along with a list of what the changes are, and each the changes have numbers, and the bubbles have a little what we used to call a caret, like a little triangle next to the bubble that indicates which explanation goes with which bubble. That's administrative notice. Okay, so it's not just the changes, not just the bubbles, but also a list of what's on the bubbles. Okay.
Understood.
And then the other thing is, in terms of the findings, you basically just go through what, as Commissioner Allen Brown said, what had been the case in the original vested rights application, and basically upon what this board based its decision to grant, and then what's happened subsequent to that. And since you also had this interim extension, you would be picking up that, right? So in 2010 and then in 2016, different things occurred. So you would be picking up those two sequences of events and sequences of work in place at the time of vesting, and then work in place in 2015, and then work in place now.
Well, just to remind you, there's been a change in ownership.
I know.
And that may create perhaps a difficulty in giving you exactly what you want, because the current.
No, it's in the resolution. You don't have to invent
It's
anything.
in the first resolution. I didn't find it in the second resolution. So they may have trouble providing that interim progress report, but they could definitely recite the first resolution's figures and then do an update now.
Yes, that's what I understood you wanted, and that's certainly something we can do.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I don't think there are any other issues that were raised.
Okay. I do have a question about that extension that's in the M district. Where is that?
Oh, that's also complete. It's all done. The entire development is essentially 98% complete.
All right. And could you please send that little message to your client about the outdoor bar and stuff like that, so that we don't get complaint. What ends up happening is they'll come to us because we were the what will be viewed by the public as the granting agency, and they'll be complaining about the noise from the outdoor bars when eventually we're allowed to have outdoor bars.
Okay, I'm unaware of that, and I will certainly take it up and discuss with the ownership.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, let's go to the public.
So the case that we're discussing right now is 2020-24A, 3935 27th Street, Queens. If you wish to call in, it's 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 947-2179-4073. Passcode is 025566.
Okay, if there's anyone in the waiting room, maybe, I don't think so, but if anyone is in the waiting room who would like to speak on this, please raise your Zoom hand. Otherwise, Mr. Mixler, how much time do you need?
We can have this to you in about a week or so.
Okay. Oops. So I'm not seeing the findings made. We really can't close this. So, all right. So I'm making a note of 1 week to submit. I don't know that I can accommodate that, but in terms of our hearing schedule, but we'll do the best we can.
We can do it February 5th. How's that?
No, okay. I don't know that we can deal with February 5th.
No, for our submission.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm making a note of that, but I don't know whether we can accommodate that hearing schedule. So we'll let you know when it's scheduled for hearing. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, new case, item number 22, 2019-200BZ, 41-19 Bell Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, when you can hear us.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, Vince and Sandy are here. Good morning. Amanda Inati.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay.
Good morning. Amanda Inati on behalf of the applicant. I'm also joined this morning by Sandy Anagnustu from Jerry Caliendo's office, Project Architects, and Vince Tomasino, who is the landlord of the subject building. We heard the board's comments this morning at the review session. Sandy will address questions regarding when the PA permit will be obtained, as well as questions from Commissioner Sheda about the footings in the cellar. Regarding ADA access in the alleyway, we did discuss this at the committee. That is why there was a question about the hallway being clear. It is a shared hallway by the ground floor tenants as well. There was construction going on at the time we were at the committee. So that's why the comment was that it should be always kept clear, because there were some boards and stuff in that hallway. So we committed to always keeping that clear, of course. About the alleyway itself, Vince has installed a bollard at the end of that road that can be removed when deliveries come. It is a shared alleyway with the 3 other buildings that are on the corner of Bell Boulevard. So the bollard can be removed if a vehicle needs to enter the site, and then it's supposed to be put back up. He also installed an auto motion light and a ramp back there. So there is lighting. And there is the bollard to prevent traffic, like I said, unless there's a delivery to one of the buildings.
But question on that, if the tenants of the spaces that have access to this bollard control remove the bollard to park their own cars there as opposed to just a temporary delivery, what prevents them from parking in such a way that prevents wheelchair access?
Right, so there's agreement among all of the tenants that there is not supposed to be long-term parking there. It is just supposed to be used for deliveries. So it is among Vince and the adjacent neighbors that's not how it's supposed to be used.
So I reiterate, because in my, the satellite imagery shows parking through the entire length, and the photograph that was supplied to us showed parking right in front of the door. So I asked the question again, what's going to prevent cars from blocking the route of a person in a wheelchair?
Vince, have you had any recent conversations with those adjacent?
It's not something you can do by just having a conversation. There needs to be something that shows that the area has to be kept clear for a certain minimum width, like striping or something like that. Yeah, Vice Chair Shonda.
Madam Chair, you just said the same thing. Is there should be a striped area which just says ADA access and probably a sign that says vehicles only for delivery, something to that effect, so that all tenants are aware of it. And that would make it very clear that the ADA access path is always free and clear of any vehicles, even that is there temporarily for delivery purposes.
Right.
We can do that striping?
We
Vince,
can
you
do
that
the
striping?
striping. Absolutely.
Okay. We can do that striping. We'll submit photos to the board in the next submission.
Okay, so striping, no parking, deliveries only sign. Show us what the lighting is, because like there was any lighting. And now how do you get inside the building from the outside if you're a patron who's in a wheelchair? And if you're in a wheelchair and you're arriving for the first time to the facility, how do you know where to go?
There is a Ring doorbell that the tenants installed for that purpose.
Where is the doorbell?
It should be right on the frame of the door itself.
On the frame of which door?
Of the alleyway door that leads to the Orange Theory.
Okay.
I think the site photos that's been provided, it's difficult to see it. So if you can provide a photo and indicate it in the plans.
Sure, no problem.
More than that. So the first part is I come to the main entrance to the gym. I'm in a wheelchair. How do I know where to go if I'm in the main entrance? And now I look at it and there's steps. What do I do? How do I know?
I believe there is an intercom system as well at the top of the stairway.
Outside.
It might be just inside the front door, and there's a landing there.
How does a disabled person, so like try to imagine being in a wheelchair, right? It's not the easiest thing in the world, right?
No.
So you roll out of your car, you roll to this location. It's not easy to open the door. Not sure you can even open the door. And now you have to roll over a saddle that gets you into the lobby of the top of the stairs. And you realize, oh, and now you have to roll back.
I think the best
way to the entrance where you've never been before, etc. So I need a better answer. I need what happens when I'm the person visiting for the first time disabled and I come to the front door of the main entrance, and I'm basically turned away because I cannot go in.
But wouldn't most of that would be by appointment these days with Orange Theory? So wouldn't that person call in and say, hey, I'm going to be there at 11 o'clock. Can you show me the way?
I don't know. So where's your Orange Theory? So
Well, I
don't
think it would be best to add a small sign by that front door and that intercom system saying ADA access is located around the corner, or to ring the intercom system and ask for assistance. We could put a small sign there.
So I think, for one, why isn't the Orange Theory person present? Because I don't know if people can't just show up. Do you always have to make an appointment?
You have to, yes, you make an appointment for the class that you're signing up for. But you're right. I mean, if it's a new patron that is just coming for information, then no.
So people who are just coming to check it out won't know. And most of the time for gyms, you make an appointment online. You don't have to talk to anyone. So there's no way for you to know that there's a problem here for access, right? So it's a new person who's made an appointment to take a class, and then they arrive at the front door and they can't get in.
So put a sign at the front door.
I would suggest that you need an intercom at the front door on the outside and a sign that clearly indicates where the entrance is. Don't say around the corner where? I'm in a wheelchair. I'm the least able to roll around and all that sort of stuff. Then there's no sign, as far as I could tell, in the alley. It doesn't say Orange Theory over the door. How do I know? Is this the alley? Is this the right way to go? Really? I'm supposed to go in here? No way. It's
We'll include signage at the front door with the intercom, with instructions to go around, and then possibly another sign at the alleyway with a direction to the striping, and then a sign at the entrance door once you arrive at the building.
And then you need to press a buzzer or something for someone to open the door for you. Is that how it works?
Yes. Yes, that's right.
So all of those things have to be installed and shown to us, okay, and put on the plan.
Yes. Installed, photos, and on the plan.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to check with the operator about the music. They do play music. We do note that there is ceiling acoustical tiles installed and 2 layers of gypsum board on the ceiling to minimize the music. But we have to check if there's a limiter also. So we could provide that information. And then Sandy, do you want to address the footings?
Yeah, yes. Good morning. I listened to Commissioner Sheta's comments regarding the footings. My office will investigate that and will respond to that. We have to go out to the field and look at that. Also regarding the public assembly permits, once the special permit is obtained from BSA, the C of O will be issued, and we will be obtaining updated public assembly permits. And we will also revise our plans to include all the items that were discussed here today, and in accordance with the administrative notice, and provide the list of revisions.
Okay.
Regarding the footing, you don't have to go to, first thing, it doesn't need to be going to the field. You can ask whoever did work inside that cellar, and if the engineer is aware of that the footing bottom is 4 feet or 3.5 feet below crust, below a grade, below the top of the slab of that basement, he can just give you a statement. I'm not asking you to go and dig and do a site investigation.
So, but when was the cellar excavated? It was done decades ago. How can you go to the engineer? When was the cellar excavated, Mr. Tomasino?
I don't know. I bought the property after a lot of that was done. So I don't know exactly when it was excavated.
Oh, you bought it with the footing on top like that?
Exactly. I bought it the way it appears now.
How long ago?
That was December of 18.
Okay. Do you have heat system working inside the basement all the
Yes,
time?
I asked the Orange Theory people a couple of questions. They do keep it heated 24/7.
Okay.
Their hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they do have a limiter on the music. They didn't know how many decibels. They're going to find out, but they do have a limiter.
No, I'm not talking about the noise now. I'm talking about the heat. The
Right,
heat is on 24/7, right?
Heat is on 24/7. Yes.
Give me a statement saying that, and I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Give me something in writing that says that basement's gonna be heated 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anybody? So let's go to the public.
The application being discussed is 2019 200 BZ 41-19 Bell Boulevard, Queens. If you wish to speak, it's 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 947-2179-4073, and the passcode is 025566.
Okay, so how much time do you need to respond to this?
I think we need a little bit of time to do the striping and the signage, prepare the signage and install that. Can we have 3 weeks?
Sure, I'll give you 4.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just trying to tell whether we can close. So here's my question to commissioners and council. If they provided us with proofs of all of those things, could we close on this? Yes,
I'm okay with that.
okay with that. And council?
That sounds fine.
Okay, so let's do that. So 4 weeks or so to, maybe I'll give you a little more to actually do the work because I don't want to have a bird here. I'm going to give you 6 weeks to submit.
Okay.
Maybe a little extra. And so just a note to the project manager, this is Jolene, 6 weeks to submit everything, but you can have 2 additional until the Friday before the hearing to submit the photo, no, not the Friday, the Wednesday before the hearing to submit the photographs of the striping. Because I understand bad weather conditions may be putting that off, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
so we can submit everything plus 1 week before the hearing. The Wednesday before the hearing, sorry. Plus Wednesday before hearing. For the photos of the striping, but not of the other stuff. The signs and everything else should be installed and submitted with your application. It's the striping where you can't paint when it's 30 degrees. So the paint companies always say you have to paint at 50. So something like that, okay? Okay.
So motion to close? Chair Perlmutter? Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item, I'm sorry. Next item is item number 23, 2019-192 BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn.
Hi. Yeah. I think so, sure.
I muted him.
Good
Okay,
morning,
Tadas, good
Dale,
morning.
for the applicant.
Okay, the only one appearing? I don't see.
I am the only one here today.
Okay, so do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board questions?
I do affirm. So good morning. Did listen to the review session comments. They were very clear and reasonable. And I believe we have a very clear list of the items we need to revise and to supplement in our next submission. I'll briefly speak to them now just to make sure we've got the full list. With response to the fire department letter, we did receive that. It's been forwarded to the project architect. We'll clarify that with revised plans. In addition, with respect to the plans, Chair, you raised some questions regarding the foundation and the units and the clarity. We'll get clarity on all those comments raised by both the chair and other commissioners in a revised plan set, including the, why not full floor units. We'll show the rear yard depth. We'll speak to the layout. We'll speak to the width of the cellar being 17 feet. But we have that clear list. We have the video, and we'll make sure that the plan revisions include that in addition to addressing the fire department comments. With respect to the EAS, those comments have already been forwarded to the environmental consultant and are actively under review. And we'll submit those as quickly as we can in order to get that process started. With respect to the title search, the single and separate title search, we will provide a very clear chart and an outline tracing it so it's easier to read. You don't have to look at the deeds. With respect to the lot study, we'll expand, sorry, go ahead.
On the deeds that you got only are the most recent transactions. So you need
Understood. Yeah, we'll go back to December 15th, 1961 and provide a clear chart.
Right.
With respect to the lot study, we'll expand it to include a narrative, and we'll also incorporate that narrative in the statement and link them together more clearly to make it easier to understand. With respect to the feasibility study, it definitely needs work. We will complete that work. It is also my understanding that we may be bringing on a new feasibility consultant, which may help solve some of the issues that were raised. But we did hear notably Commissioner Holly Brown's comments, but everybody's comments about the issues and the clarity. So we'll revise that, and I as counsel will double check and make sure that everything is clear. And I believe the other comment will also address in the next submission 58 Grattan, which is the bulk grant the board issued in 2017. We'll provide a response to that with respect to the current application. I would just note briefly, we'll supplement this in a submission, but I would note that that lot is the subject lot is shallower. It's 87 feet versus 100 feet. So we'll speak to how that the fact that the subject lot is shallower might affect the variance, what we're asking for. We'll also try and provide an update as to what the status is. I just looked quickly, and it seems like 3 years after the grant that lot still isn't under construction. So I think that might provide some practical real world to, even though the board granted a variance, there may still be concerns as to the feasibility of developing that with just the bulk relief that the board granted. But we'll include that in our next submission.
Just so you, because I also looked at the status, and they actually, I believe they either got their plans approved over the summer of 2020.
Okay.
So it's not like they're not proceeding with the project. Maybe the property was sold or something like that, and now the new owner is pursuing it. I don't know the answer to that part.
Sure. Well, sorry to interrupt, but sure, we'll definitely address that. But I would say that on initial review, the notable difference is the fact that the Harrison lot, this subject lot, is a shallower lot. We believe that affects the feasibility for commercial use.
But that's why I was suggesting that the waiver would include a rear yard waiver so that your floor plate would be the same as Grattan.
Sure. We can definitely take a look at that.
Okay.
I believe that is a summary of all the items that were addressed. It was very clear. We've got the video. As I said, we have some of the consultants are already actively working on some of the items, and we'll get to work on the others, specifically the feasibility study, which I think is the biggest item to revise.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay, so let's go to the public.
Okay, the item being discussed is 2019-192BZ, 16 Harrison Place, Brooklyn. Should you wish to call in at 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 947-2179-4073. The passcode is 025566. And if you're already in the Zoom room, raise your hand.
Right, I don't think no, there's no one in the Zoom room, so. So, Mr. Dale, how much time to do this?
We can be flexible with the board's calendar realistically, because I want to ensure that there's sufficient time for revisions, specifically for the financial analysis. I would say we would want at least 8 weeks to submit.
Okay.
I think that should give enough time to really dig into it.
Okay.
But again, we can be flexible with the board's calendar.
Okay, great. Nobody dialed in, so thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good morning.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so this concludes the public hearing for January 26, 2021, 10 a.m. session. We will resume at 2 p.m.